Alright, let's go! The gun going off
charge!
for the last parade tour.
Goodbye, farewell. Got a bit of a problem.
Squall shenanigans.
That's the aim of the game right now. Get comfortable. We're in this for the long haul. Third squall tonight. Can you flatten out the boat just a tiny bit?
Alright. Ocean salad.
And I'm pretty certain I've the stick dust.
Welcome to episode 200. The last 199 have been quite the rollercoaster ride. Up to now we've completed 18,000 nautical miles, an Atlantic circuit and a few other exciting diversions. But for the most part, for the last 5 years we've been reaching and running under blue skies and turquoise waters, which is absolutely something you can and should do forever. But at a certain point I began to ask myself, do I have 5 years experience or do I have 1 year's experience 5 times? So with that in mind, we decided it was time for a change. With the northern summer due to start in 2 weeks and not a moment to lose getting there, we decided we would not give ourselves the luxury of stopping. This is the story of how 2 scruffy mid-latitude cruisers took a 40-year-old boat 3,600 nautical miles non-stop to Iceland.
It is departure day. This weather window that we are going on now hasn't made itself easy, hasn't made itself known. We've been kind of waiting around for a little while, but right now we know that we have about 5 days of consistent weather to head all the way up north, all the way up to Iceland. Fingers crossed. So that's 3,200 miles, around about. I'm sure Adam will correct me if I'm wrong.
I haven't checked that.
Oh really? I haven't actually checked it. How are you feeling?
You put a lot on the departure, but then I'm going through the motions and I'm sort of expecting this big like, alright, let's go moment.
A horn tooting, like a race starting.
Yeah, like a gun going off or something.
Yeah.
Charge, yeah. And it doesn't happen. So you end up sort of just like checking and rechecking and pacing the halls and you're just waiting for this moment. You're like, it's
You have
not,
a coffee and
what
you're
am I
just like,
waiting for? And you're like, well, alright, well, let's just go like all the other times, but this
Yeah,
time it
it's
might be
very
for
true.
a month. I'm predictably excited, sensibly nervous, but you know, we're going to take it 1 week at a time, one forecast at a time, and we've got all the contingencies, all of the like places to go. You know, I'm not in a race. I'm not going to do anything foolish for the sake of getting there non-stop. Like, the challenge is for us is like, all right, let's see if we can thread the needle and go non-stop as an endurance and as a challenge of sort of navigation. If there's a gale charging into my path that I just can't get out of the way of, and I'm sailing right past Bermuda or wherever, well, I'll just pull in. Like, I'm not going to knowingly put myself at risk, or Kiara, or the boat.
Thanks, babe.
We've got the ditch bags ready, the raft is in service, the boat's good, the fluids are good, the jack lines are out, dinghy's up, hydrovane's good. We got charts, we got backups, got food, got water, got fuel.
We're ready. Let's go. And we are officially underway. The anchor is all tied up on the front. I mean, we do that on every single passage, so that's nothing new. But we also stuffed some rag down the hose pipe.
Oh, did you? Good job.
I did, yeah. What we're having to do this whole trip pretty much is make a lot of eastward ground. Eastward and obviously north. So what we're gonna do is we want to charge up our batteries before we go. So we're just motoring down the lee of the island, getting a good like 5 miles of eastward ground in, because why not? While the seas are pretty calm here. And then as soon as we can make a line for going straight out to sea.
As soon as we clear the ley line of Anguilla, which is sort of to the north and in the way, we'll hoist sail and charge
head off
away.
from there. Final farewell to St. Martin. It's nice, you know, just having like a final, okay, this is what the whole island looks like and everything like that.
Last parade tour.
Yeah, exactly. Goodbye. Well, farewell.
squall shenanigans, post-squall shenanigans.
Got a bit of a problem.
So somebody wrapped the winch wrong and now we've wrapped ourselves up really badly and we can't get the pressure off the furling line to free up the winch to unscrew it. So we're sort of stuck at this level of, we can either take in more head sail and ruin and wrap it up even further, which will tangle us up even more, or we leave it where it is and try to untangle it and then put it all to rights. I think I'm going to be able to use the big winch here to just pull it out of itself. It isn't wrapped, it's only wrapped once, and by wrap I mean like it's winched over itself on the drum, which jams it up. The more you wrap it, the more it winches over the top of itself and you can never get it off.
Okay, think we found a solution.
Yeah, so it's not elegant, certainly not pretty. The reason for all this trouble is because these staysail winches are dead. And to furl in a big head sail in a hurry, they're just not suitable anymore. So we're looking to find ways to get them onto the big winches, which is how we ended up here. Anyway, I managed to take in another 6 to 8 inches of head sail using this winch and just a rolling hitch on that. And then when I slacken that off, the clutch on the side of the boat, which stops the head sail from unfurling, has stopped it and given us 12 inches more line to mess with. So at least now we've got some slack in the line and we can hopefully untangle that.
Free! It's a very squally, gusty day, and suddenly not being able to roll in the jib is just not ideal. Alright, problem solved at least. Day 1, problem solved. Well, first morning after I'm going to say it was a bit of an eventful night because there was just school after school after school. The very first night of Adam and I being on passage is always a little bit up and down, making sure that the other person's okay, because obviously we're not used to it. So as soon as we hear the wind kick up, and the wind generator did help with that, as soon as you recognise that it's like a different pitch, a different tempo, you're like, oh, the wind must have kicked up a little bit. I'll go and see how the other person's doing. So Adam and I were up constantly throughout the night, just like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, it sounds like a school, just being there for moral support, you know. So we managed to get through that. Sun's just coming up now. Another day ahead. How many miles have we done? Let's have a look. So 117 miles. It hasn't solely been 24 hours, but we're certainly not setting any speed records this morning. Actually, the whole time. Literally, we're kind of like beating so much into wind that it's like we're doing well if we're doing 5 knots. So that's the current positions, but as mentioned, it's day 1. We're not going to push ourselves or the boat too much. So we're going slow. We're just making sure that it's a nice place that we can sleep while we're sailing and to actually be in the cockpit and doing our shift. That's the aim of the game right now. Get comfortable. We're in this for the long haul. Well, just as I vlogged before saying that we were on school watch throughout the night, it appears that another one has come this morning. Oh, I think the rain's coming soon as well. I can see a layer of rain. 30 knots, just belting at us, just as I was in the middle of breakfast. So, poor Adam's woken up. More schools, more and more schools. It's going to be a schooly few days.
It's the end of day 3. No, the evening of day 3. Tomorrow morning at 9 AM will be the end of day 3. Day 2.5.
Day 3 on passage, I think. And the sun's just setting. It's been a bit of a wild ride. It's just been, I guess, the sea state has mostly been a little bit wild for me.
We had to make up a fair bit of eastern ground in the start, and so we were sort of bashing to windward. And then we stuck with it for about 24 hours and made some pretty good ground and all of that.
But after a while we got a bit fed up and we decided to stop being a slave to a waypoint, so I sort of replotted the waypoint. You know, when you're doing a 20-something day crossing, you only get 7-day forecast and you put the waypoint somewhere in the end of a 7-day window. You don't really, like, that's entirely arbitrary, but you get very much married to it.
There's a whole ocean.
Yeah, it's like I can move the dot. Like, why am I'm going this way because I said I would go this way, because I put the dot where I put it and said, take me there. I can move the dot at any time to make life better for myself. So we did that, and now we're on a slightly more northerly course, and life has improved, but the swell is up still today.
It was actually quite pleasant last night. Managed to sleep through our shifts, 3.5-hour shifts, quite pleasantly. But just today, it's been, you guys beating a bit too far at wind yesterday. And Adam came up like, can you flatten out the boat just a tiny bit? After like 3 hours of no sleep on his shift. I was like, sorry babe, sorry. Whoops.
First 2 days always suck because you find your rhythm, you're getting in your sleep rhythm and your eating rhythm and your bathroom rhythm, and everything changes, and it really does take 3 days to get even close to regular and just on a good sleep pattern and a good eating pattern again.
Which is why we haven't really picked the camera up too much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Takes a bit of adjustments.
We're almost there. Almost back. Almost in the groove.
Just 20-something days left. We're not almost
but once you get in the groove, the days just fly by.
So I had school tonight, literally. It's almost 5 o'clock in the morning, just on time for a shift change. So it's a nice waking up for a shift. So Adam, how's your day 4 week?
This is the start of day 4.
This is the start of day 4, exactly 5 o'clock in the morning.
Titled The Wet Day.
Yes.
It's supposed to be the end of all the rain. I swear, I said just last night, I said the forecast says
It looks really good.
looks like we've seen the last of the rain. No, sir.
This is not the nicest of wake-up calls. We've pretty much rolled the jib in. Got a staysail and 3 reefs in the main, and that's other than the jib. So far over reefed, and we've only got about 20 knots of wind, but just keep getting all these squalls throughout the night. So we've kept in a 3rd reef in the main for like the whole night, so that we're pretty much prepared for whatever comes. We've got the staysail up, and at this stage, as I said, like we've pretty much taken most of the jib in, just because we're so sick of dealing with this stuff. See,
she's still doing 6.5 knots.
Oh really? Yeah. It's just crap on the horizon, and it's like just take everything down. Just it's not worse. Just coming up, going downstairs, coming back up, going downstairs, holding on for dear life. Just exhausting. Not very good for a good night's sleep.
The following day and the next continued like this, until finally there was a break in the weather and we could check out what condition the boat was in.
The beating we had taken in the days prior had shifted the dinghy dangerously close to the edge, so we decided that it might be a good idea to re-secure it.
Do that solar panel too, but that's completely almost gone.
After a year in the Caribbean sun, the thread holding the solar panels on was pretty well dead, and after each squall, yet another corner of the solar panel came loose. So many fun hours on passage were spent saving and sewing the solar panels back on.
Breakfast? Yeah. Oh, buddy.
Catch of the trip. Alright.
Oh no.
First catch, we're having ocean salad.
Maybe that's just going to be the summary of fishing life while out on passage. But it is day 5, so we thought we'd throw a fishing rod in. What to report? Well, the waves have kind of stayed similar to what they have been the last few days, so we've kind of been beam reaching most of the time, which is awesome. The squalls have definitely lessened out, and if you can see around me, it's like only wisps of cloud in the air, which is really nice. It's a bit of a relief, really. because just having schools for the first, I think 2 to 3 days, it was getting really exhausting. Like at night time, it would be that Adam would come up from his sleep downstairs, and as soon as Adam would come up, the schools would be like, oh cool, Adam's up, let's all go say hey. And so I would get very uninterrupted sleep, and Adam would need to deal with the school. No, actually, we say that, but like,
You always can run.
otherwise, day 5, passage is going really well. Hey, how many miles have we done?
Trip calculator says we have covered 646.3 miles. We've been going for 100 hours and 23 minutes. Average speed, that's easy math, 6.4 knots. Average speed. Max speed, 11 knots.
Oh, I wonder what day that was.
Yeah. We're actually sort of a fair bit further offshore from Bermuda than I thought we would be. Usually you sort of have to kind of take the trades north, and you can't make a lot of easting, and then you sort of hit the westerlies up and over the top of the high. But we've had a sort of uncharacteristic bout of southeasterlies on this trip, so we've managed to make up a fair bit of easting. And the high is kind of, unfortunately, the second part of the forecast window, or rather the forecast window as it's unfolding, is a little bit of a mixed bag. Nothing sinister, but it isn't going to be that beautiful high adjacent to Bermuda that you just kind of go up and over the top. So we could be anything at this stage, but at least for the next 3 days we're looking like it's going to be more of the same, and this is lovely. This is just easy miles. Money for jam. So Kiara and I have devised a very intricate system so that we can maintain very few dishes, because 1, water's tight, 2, nobody really wants to stand here, and 3, there's nowhere to dry them out, so if you sort of line them up where we would usually at anchor, they end up strewn across the room. So pretty much for the most part, we live out of these 2 bowls. They can do, you can put soups, chicken,
Like ramen
salad,
bowls.
ramen. We just had noodles in them, and you just clean the same 2 bowls, the same 2 spoons between meals, and then you really only have to deal with 2 bowls and 2 spoons. And then when you're not using them, they sit on top of the stove because that's got a gimbal. So it helps keep the mess down. And then on top of that, we try to use one small pot for hot water for making coffee, and 1 small pot for heating up food.
My domestic god. Adam is making me a lunch. I think he promised me something about 5 courses. Roasted chicken, roasted, dessert as well. So I'm really, really intrigued to see what he's going to come up with. I'm very excited.
The trick is to save 1 sachet for after you drain the water, and then you stir it through to get that extra cheap flavour that only 2-minute noodles can provide. Lunch of champions. All the major food groups. Not a word. It's actually curry flavoured and chicken.
Curry and chicken flavour. Woohoo!
Fusion.
And Cokes!
Oh, I forgot my latte.
Yay!
Hello everybody, it is the evening of day 6. We are making pretty great progress. We've done about 830 miles since the day we left. We've had 2 moderate days and the rest have been absolutely lovely. Like right now we're beam reaching in 12.5 knots and we're making about 5 or 6, which is perfectly fine by me. We haven't had any rain for the last 4 days.
The previous nights have all been completely uneventful. No need to get up, no need to reef, no need to do anything. We're eating better, we're sleeping better, we're in a really good rhythm. The next forecast window looks like it's not going to be quite as awesome as this one was, but you know, what can you do? You can't leave port with 2 weeks of certainty with your weather, so I will take my good week and I'll just take what I get after that. Groundhog Day has set in, but it's a good Groundhog Day. We're waking up feeling more rested, we're eating, everything's going really well.
How's dinner going, Chief? What's tonight?
Actually, I've got one of my canned meals out tonight.
A week prior to leaving, while we were waiting for a good weather window in St Martin, I provisioned up a storm, having heard of the expensive food prices in Iceland. So I stockpiled many months of food from the cheaper St Martin. Part of my prep for the passage was making a ton of pre-made food, so that if the weather was rough, I could easily pull out a yummy, quick meal in minutes. Because we don't have a large freezer on board, I use a pressure canner instead, to can pre-prepared meals and cheap cuts of meat to eat later.
It's chicken and white bean chili, something like that. But I didn't really grow up eating chili or making chili, so who knows what that's going to taste like. Anyway, yeah, just adding some more beans into it. I think it sounds good. Could be good, right?
Could be horrible.
Could be horrendous too. Day 8, sleepyhead. Wakey wakey!
Day 8, I can't believe it's day 8. The wind is failing us slightly, so we're just kind of ghosting along. It was a pretty cruisy night last night. We were just effortlessly ghosting along in this kind of swell, which is 3 feet, if that. And we had about 12 knots and she just quietly chugged along at 5 knots, which was great. We both got a pretty good night's sleep. And seems like more of the same really, but failing us even more, like easing even more through to Saturday. So we're in the calm phase. We're in the mixed bag phase of the journey. That's what I'll call it, the mixed bag phase. We've had like reaching in the trades, and now we're in the mixed bag phase where it's going to be a bit hot and cold. It could be frontal passage, it could be ghosting along in a high, and it could be like beam reaching in the wake of a big low that's screaming ahead north of us. Which is kind of the 3 things I'm bracing for this week. Day 8, the days are really like blurring, you know, like they're starting to, initially it was like, oh, 1 day, yes, 2 days, here's day 3, day 3 is where everything changes, and then day 3 happens, and then before you know it, it's like, what day is it? Is that day 8? What? Wow, okay. Which is great, because that's where like the period of the passage of time really starts to accelerate, like rapidly. Before you know it, it'll be day 14, and then you'll be like, oh. And then it's only when you get close to where you're going that it starts to be like, instead of day 15, it's T-minus 3 days. And that's when it's like, oh, come on, 2 more days. And then it really stops when you see the land. Once you can see it, then time just slows. Somebody puts the handbrake on and time just goes to zip, and you're like, we're never getting there. We will never sail the last 8 miles. Because the picture doesn't change all day.
I'd do a daily walk of the decks, but when it's sometimes pretty bad weather, both Adam and I don't want to walk the decks. It's just downright dangerous, so we won't. But on a day like today, it's actually really nice. Just walk the decks, make sure everything's kind of looking good, is what it's meant to be. So like looking for signs of chafe up the top of our halyards, looking for signs of chafe anywhere on the boat, and also making sure that our dinghy is strapped down. We've noticed throughout the last few days that the battens in our lazy jacks are kind of rubbing on the sail. So I'm just going to stick down some, I think it's called like sticky sailcloth or sticky Dacron or something like that. But I'm just going to put that on the chafing spots where the batten is kind of chafing on the sail, because I really don't want this sail to split or anything. kind of time is it?
Yep. Gotta be in it to win it. Not had so much as a bite for... Oh, here he comes.
Oh, Bobby, how far out are we? We're like 1,000 miles from the Caribbean.
We're like
500 miles
600
from-
miles from the nearest land. And yeah, 1,000 miles from the Caribbean. I'm gonna do it. I'll bring it in if he starts going for it. But otherwise.
Well, it's later in the day on day 8. Calm has finally hit. I'm actually not entirely sure what time it is because we've been going up, so we need to like adjust our time frames a little. The sun was starting to rise at like 3 o'clock in the morning, which just wasn't right. So I think it's about 6:20 p.m. right now. Sun's like on its way down to setting. We're seeing like 5 knots of wind, but little Millie's still trying to truck along at about 4 knots, so bless her. She's doing really well. Might mean though, with the sun going down, we might need to motor throughout the night. But if we can try just sailing, we definitely will. And then that will mean a nice night of sleep. But at the moment, wind's dropping off. Might not come out again until tomorrow, I'd say. There's lots of things in the water. And I was like, oh, there must be like leaves or rubbish or something like that. But it's all these Hey Ads, what are the name of those jellyfish? They're really dangerous.
Portuguese man of war.
That's the ones. I'm seeing lots of them.
Yeah,
I thought they were like leaves or something.
Yeah, looks like a plastic bottle.
Yeah, exactly. We're starting to see the Portuguese man of war. For me, that's definitely what an ocean crossing reminds me of, is a Portuguese man of war.
Join us next episode when the real challenge of a 27-day passage sets in. The honeymoon period ends and things start to go wrong.